Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So as we go through here, as you guys have questions or anything, feel free to jump in. I'll give you a little bit of background history on this. So we are an electrical contractor here in Phoenix, Arizona. We went down the path. We saw BIM being used more and more. So we've been doing this for roughly
since 2005.
Yeah, 2005 that we've been working with them. We had just recently, in the last 3 years, switched over from Autodesk to Revit. Part of the reason that we had done that with Autodesk, we weren't getting AutoCAD. We weren't getting the functionality out of AutoCAD that we needed. We were able to draw all the pretty pictures that we wanted to do, but the logics, the brains behind it, the functionality behind it, we couldn't get it to do what we needed it to do. We also started seeing the trend in the marketplace of more and more of the engineering side, a lot of the companies starting to push Revit as the platform. So after doing some investigation on that, we decided to switch over from AutoCAD to Revit MEP. Kind of give you an idea what we faced at that time. When we had made that transition over, we were running roughly 40 plus full-time modelers that were doing 10-hour days on AutoCAD MEP. So some of the things that you'll see today, if you're an AutoCAD user, will look familiar. As we transitioned to create this, we wanted to make it as painless, seamless as possible for AutoCAD users. So one of the big things that caused us to go down this path, we felt like the usage of BIM for many, many years was nothing more. As a subcontractor, we weren't getting value out of it. We were drawing everything. That was great that we were seeing references and seeing things with it, but as far as it being a valuable tool to us that was something saving us money as a contractor, we weren't seeing that. So we felt, and we still feel, the way that we save money on this and what becomes a benefit is taking the model and then being able to fabricate off-site in our warehouse and be able to ship this out and to assemble it in the field and reduce the amount of field hours that it's taking. So as we took that on and went down the path here, we've been able to greatly reduce our field hours that we're putting in, and I'll give you some statistics on that. We have a large contractor that we're doing work with here that is 100% BIM collaboration efforts, and through the efforts on that project, we had roughly 200 electricians on that site. We're able to reduce our field labor by our full cost, which was mainly our field labor, reduced by 30% on that. So we saw some huge gains on our end, to the point that we've become the primary electrical contractor for the site. So a lot of big things that we're seeing by that as we're pushing through and making some of these changes. So everything you're going to see today was created with the fabrication in mind of what we were doing. First thing that we kind of faced with that, we worked with a number of companies, is having the families. So we faced the challenge right away with not having any electrical families in Revit that we needed. So we'd created a lot of stuff in AutoCAD. We knew we were going to go through the growing pains to create that in Revit. So you'll see some of the demonstration, and when Rick jumps in here in a few, that what we created on the toolbar to do that, the ease and the usage of the toolbar, being able to model in views that you couldn't before. The big one for us is he'll demonstrate in there, the sheet set creation that we're able to. So I don't know if any of the companies out there is using any kind of total station to do field layout. It's another function that we have in there. One of the big things that we were pushing on that is overseeing the operations on this. We're faced with the dilemma. We would bring in large amounts of modelers, get them trained, get these great qualified guys on board, and then all of a sudden, when we didn't have BIM projects, I didn't have anything for them to do. So through the creation of this and everything that we were doing, the idea with this as well was, how do we make this easy enough that we can use modeling functions on projects that are non-BIM projects? For example, underground or electric rooms that we primarily have the run of the mill to put stuff where we need to put it in those areas, we're able to still go in and fabricate and model and do our thing in those areas without too many interruptions by anybody else. So I was able to keep my staff working and keep them busy, whereas before I couldn't utilize that. So you'll see some of that as we go through. Feel free anytime during this presentation, if you guys have questions, go ahead and ask. We'll field them as best that we can for everybody. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rick and let him start going through it. Anybody have any questions for me at this point? Nope. Okay. Go ahead, Rick.
All right, good morning. I'm Rick Buckman, the system supervisor here, part of the development team here that built the tools that you're going to look at today. So before I even start here, we did have a process in AutoCAD, but it was really, like Aaron said, you know, you're modeling, but the real power is getting the data out of the model. It was very painstaking just to go through the process all the time and model and coordinate, but not be able to really communicate how to prefabricate and get that stuff out of the model. So a lot of times you're just making tons and tons of sheets trying to communicate, you know, what you want. You're trying to figure out how to break it down. And we have a workflow that works really well. And part of that is having a good catalog.
Yeah, give you an idea of what we were facing with when we were going down the AutoCAD was we really didn't know what end result we had to have. We would start modeling, and as you guys may feel the same way, every contractor, general contractor, owner, they're requesting different things, their level of detail, their level of information they wanted. So we would march down the path with AutoCAD, and we were having to build these plugins in all over the place to make it work. And if anything happened to it, it would break one process and everything would crumble. So when we got to do this all over again with this in mind, we were able to start with what we knew we needed at the end. We had made years of mistakes, so it was a little helpful for us as we went down this path. The other big benefit is, you guys will see this, we're not a software manufacturing company that's sitting behind a desk building this. Rick is, give you a little bit of background for both of us, Rick is an electrician by trade. I'm an electrician that worked out in the field for 15 years. So we've lived this, we use this all the time. We have a 23,000 square foot fabrication facility, so the things that you're seeing in this, we use all day. We've broke it, we've had to fix it, we've known what processes worked and what didn't work. So it's real time. Those two departments are one department as a whole, so it's a lot of communication, as Rick showed you that.
So part of the struggle was we had an enormous AutoCAD block library that we took all that time, all those years to build, and you know, just trying to, okay, we're going to use Revit now. Well, you can't just insert a bunch of CAD blocks into Revit and have it operate efficiently. It'll just bog down. So we had no choice but to start from scratch and build our content library. So that's really the first part of this adventure, was building what we needed. in a block library. So I'll just kind of run through the listing here. We built all Hoffman Wireway for NEMA 1 enclosure screw cover. Size is 2.5 to 12 inch. Everything comes in to the environment as stretchable auto sizes. I'll go through some of that later. But you're getting every fitting that you would really need if you're running Wireway. You got T's, flanges, everything. And we'll be including our Hoffman Wireway boxes here in our next release as well. We have tons of the conduit for EMT, IMC, different fittings. Also, when it comes to like conduit bodies and those kind of things, if you use the out-of-the-box Revit stuff, they're really kind of plain Jane. You can't really figure out where the cover is. Ours actually have an arrow that will depict the opening. They also come with the connectors already on the ends. You can turn them off if you don't want them on there, but you have the option of compression or set screw. And then we have even the oversized moguls and L's like that. The boxes are pretty cool. Our NEMA 1 boxes for indoor use. You can insert a box, and then if you just hit the checkbox, you can decide, you know, do I want a flat cover on there? Do I want a 2-gang mud ring? A single gang mud ring? Do I want a ground pigtail in there? Those are all just checkbox controls, and you can actually control the depth or say I want an adjustable type ring. We have the octagon box, also weatherproof boxes, single and double gang. Also various supports that we have, and then I think we just had a request to come through to start making kick plates, so that'll probably be something that we add in the future as well, by Caddy. Unistrut. So when you insert a piece of unistrut, that unistrut can transform into any one of these 4 here. So you could have deep, back-to-back shallow, back-to-back deep, or just shallow. And then you can choose the material based on if you want gold finish or, you know, stainless steel. Without jumping too far ahead here, what you're controlling is visual, but you're also controlling how the parts are ordered. So as you're inserting any one of these components into your model space, you're actually calling out true catalog numbers, or you're saying, I want this part or an equal. So you're getting those descriptions in there so you can actually order legitimate material. You're not just getting a generic placeholder most of the time. You're getting something substantial that you can forward off to a vendor because we're using brand name components. And then all the different plates and brackets that go with strut. If you have you know, the need to see something that we don't have, they're fairly easy to make. We can add those to the catalog as well. We have minis, even the hanger types, so we can just hang a single mini. Various supports, cone nuts, down to the nut, you know what I'm saying? And we're tracking all this material. Now, we have assemblies that, you know, say you inserted this little assembly here, it's multiple pieces in one, so you're not having to necessarily add all these if you don't want to. But the functionality too is you can take the power of Revit groups. You can take something like this, build your own little assembly in a Revit group and share that in your file, and you could use that across multiple projects if you want to, but you would have all of the parts here. And then we also have these really fancy prefab families, which I'll show you later. This one here, this D1P1, has over 80,000 combinations. It's a 3-box wall assembly. Actually, all 3 of these are wall assemblies for stubbing out of walls. And there's some really cool workflows we can show you with that. So moving on, so everything that you see in the family bar, as well as some of the other bars I'll show you later, you can assign a keyboard shortcut to that. So if you're from AutoCAD and you're used to using list routines, you'll be able to use 2 and 3 keyboard shortcut combinations, and you'll be able to insert any one of these objects. So the power of that just comes from your typing, you're inserting, and you're going and modeling. You're not having to even come over here and drag each piece, or even go into your Windows folder, because all this stuff is contained within the Revit environment, and you have a visual representation of what you're pulling in. So as I said, you go through, pick the item, and then you would probably, once you developed your listing here, you can export your list to Excel and share that with, all your people within your BIM group, what your shortcuts are. So if you have to go from computer to computer, maybe to assist, you're all using the same shortcut. So this example, we type in 45 and we get our Wireway 45 fitting. If we type in WW, it inserts a Wireway piece right into the environment. You can see it over here in the 3D view as well. So the power of this too is when you start developing this massive list of families in your project, you're having to go through and kind of look with text, and that's why the other reason why we have the visual representation here and the keyboard shortcuts, because to speed up your modeling workflow, you don't want to have to come over here all the time and search for every single family. What you can also see too is the families that we're developing, they're unique, so they'll stand out from your out-of-the-box Revit components. But it's just a way to speed up the modeling workflow. Okay, and then I spoke about auto-sizing. So while you have the Wireway families, you'll place your first initial piece for your raceway, you'll size it, and then you'll set your elevation. And then everything that you snap to that will actually just acquire the size that it's snapping to. And the conduit and conduit raceways, conduit bodies, all that stuff works the same way. We also have a lot of dynamic content in our conduit families. So this Kick 90, for example, over here, is not just a generic piece of tubing that's going through here. It's actually solving the kick, the hypotenuse, and the angle, and it will adjust real time. Plus you have numerous shape handles, so you can just stretch and flex this thing. But as you change your angles, it's smart enough to know, and it's usable for your isometric views, which I'll show you later. So when you're going through and tagging these bends, this is the information that's going out to a prefabrication shop. So I spoke earlier about the prefab wall families. So to give you a scenario, you may have somebody that maybe is a brand new person to Revit or brand new to modeling, period. You could in fact use these for a wall rough scenario that I'll just paint a picture for you. If you have say a PDF layout of a room and you wanted to use a particular assembly all throughout that room in a 2D environment, you could use this example here, this P1 assembly. You'd go through and pick your assembly the way you want it, and say, you want these settings, and it will adjust it on the fly. Now, again, it's great. You've got the model. It looks cool, but you really want to get the output out of that. So for a prefab build sheet on this one here, you just say create PDF assembly, and now you get a unique build sheet of that type. So this says here, you got a quantity of 1, and this is the actual assembly, and then it shows you a bill of materials up here that you can utilize for that unique assembly. Now the cool thing is, if you're wanting to get a cost estimate of what it would take to build out that room, you go through and populate your model with all the various assembly types. Let's say here we're going to add a couple of those. Well, now that build sheet is automatically counting what it took to build 2 of that assembly. So you can imagine if you just wanted to quickly array that by, say, 30 or 40 or 50, whatever, per room, you get a quick room count, and you'd be able to export that material count out real quick. So when it comes to exporting from the entire model, you would use this example here. We got just an office complex, and we want to export the entire bill of materials for that project, and we pick this schedule view here and do export rec form out of our toolbox. That's going to export the entire bill of materials into Excel. We're going to overwrite that form, and now you can see you have a complete match, everything in Excel of everything live that's in this file here. What that does is now you can make minor changes. Let's say I want to change my I need to change the description on this one part. Well, you just do it right here in Excel, and then you send it off to your purchasing agent by email. But that in itself allows us to order that material before we even think of our fabrication process, really. So we took the entire output of that out. That's our first deliverable, is going and saying I want to output all that material and get that material coming in, because you have long lead items, you have numerous things that you need to kind of show up on time. Otherwise you're impacting the prefab department. Alright, so I'm going to minimize that. So now the next stage, so we've outputted our material, we've got it on the way. Now it's time to start our sheet set process. So this is a live model here. You can see got a bunch of conduit, a bunch of hangers, we got flex, numerous components in here as it's going through this little file. And it's not a huge file. So if you're from AutoCAD, you're used to putting everything on a layer system, right? So if I want to be able to segregate what I'm looking at, well, we have the power of phases. So if you go to your Manage tab here and you go to Phases, you can see I've got like 36 phases in this project here. So every one of these components here, or raceways, we'll call them raceways, is assigned to a phase. So this is on eConduit reference 09. Everything has its own phase. So what we're doing is we're in fact assigning the raceway routings of how we want to prefabricate those. So if you have a run coming from a panel and it needs to break down into 3 different runs or 3 different assemblies, you would give it 3 different phases, and then that's how you would segregate those build sheets for your prefab department. So we go through, we've done all our modeling, we've got everything assigned to its phasing, and then we're going to go to our sheet set tools, and we're going to run the view and sheet set creator. We're going to select the items here that are listed. So it's asking us, if we assigned everything to its phase, filled out project information, which is going to autofill your title blocks. a QA/QC checklist because you don't really want to have to go back. And then you need to have a scope box from Revit placed around the entire area. We'll click Start. We load our title block. We're going to load the generic title block here, and we're going to say OK. So what this is going to do is, if you look to the right side there, that's all the views that you currently have, and you have no sheets. And in that couple seconds, now you have a view, or if you're from AutoCAD, it'd be a viewport. You have all these views, and then you also have all these sheets. So what that did was it produced the view or viewport, placed that viewport in the sheet, and then it also laid out the title block. So if we go to that one I was talking about, reference 09, and then you go to reference 01, this is broke down. You get a sheet, isometric sheet, for every phase. So anything that's modeled in that phase comes out on this view.
So when we started down doing this, I can tell you 3 years ago, the ratio of modelers to guys doing sheet sets, we call them sheet set guys here, was about a 1-to-1 ratio. For every guy that was modeling, we had a guy that was doing the sheet sets. It was taking almost as long to do the sheet set creation as it was to model the project. For them to go and put those components onto this view and to go put all the dimensions to it was taking them just about the same amount of time. With the creation of this, for us, we have been able to change that down to closer to a 1-to-4 to 1-to-5 ratio. So 4 or 5 modelers now are able to one guy doing sheet sets is able to keep up with 4 or 5 modelers with this new way of doing it. So it's been a huge time savings for us. The other thing I want to share with you is the reason we've gone to the fact of wanting to create the bill of material right out of the model, and some of that Rick showed, was the fact that for us, in the time spans that we were doing projects, if you think about how it works, if I was to lay it out on a schedule, we were modeling the job, we were then doing the sheet sets for them. So let's say we had a week of modeling, a week of doing sheet sets. Then by the time it was hitting fabrication floor, I had to have a very high skilled level guy out on fabrication floor counting all of the parts and pieces that were on those sheets, those views, to get a bill of material. He would then order that material, and the day or 2 days, 3 days, whatever it took for that to show up before we could start working on the project itself. So we were losing not only the valuable time to build in fabrication, we were also losing a high-level guy that was doing the takeoff for that. So with this process in the modeling, when they're done modeling, they're able to create the bill of material, send that over to purchasing. While sheet sets are being created, the material is being ordered. By the time, and typically how it works, the material is already here packaged up by the time the sheets hit the floor out there. The other thing that does for us, if you're looking on a logistical side, so in my role as operations, I'm looking at a much bigger picture. In order to not delay jobs that we were having, because we didn't have a whole lot of time to fabricate, what was happening was we had to buy material and have a stockpile or a surplus of material sitting on the shelf in our fabrication. So when the sheets hit, we could start building it, and then we would still do the takeoff, order it, and backfill what was already in stock or in our warehouse. This process, as we went through this, one of the other things is being lean. We're very focused on lean construction. That as we plan this through, that was a lot of material that we were paying for as a company that we couldn't be reimbursed for. The way we're doing it now, it's ordered on time from us, it's pulled through, we build it, and we ship it just-in-time delivery. We're not pre-building a lot of stuff on the front end for us. One of the reasons we do that as well is it allows changes to be made. If there are changes at the last minute, we're not going to do things that aren't needing to be done for weeks at a time. So it was a huge savings for us. If you were to go out into our warehouse, where I've had upwards around 40 guys working out there at one time, there's very little spare conduit that you would see, or any kind of tray. You'll see it packaged up specifically for a job. On a project, it may say it's package number 10, and we know that was column line this to column line that, rough in. Whatever it is, it's all packaged up in a way, and it comes in as raw material, then gets packaged that way going out.
Okay, so I'm just going to run through just kind of briefly here. You have numerous tools, which I don't have time to necessarily go through every one of these tools, but you have automatic tagging, scale up, scale down, so you can scale up, scale down. You have a pick plane tool, which allows you to pick a plane to actually decide what plane you want to start dimensioning from. If you wanted to dimension, you'd pick a plane there, and then you'd be able to project your dimensions off of any plane depending on what you chose. So if I wanted to go this way now, I can just say the DI again, and now I can project the dimension differently. No, I guess I just chose that same side. Let's do that again. So let's choose that little side there. So now you can see I'm projecting the dimension off a different direction there. Mark tag, we have datum coordinates, which if you're using spot coordinates, you can pull XYZ from a known point, not necessarily the project base point. You can use actually that to get a tag. You can change all your arrowheads automatically to 15 degrees. You can add a 3D text node in here that as you rotate the project, it stays in there. So actually some of our guys will use that if they want to put a note in there for the sheet set guy later on, just to kind of give them a heads up, but it stays in there and it's legible, no matter how you rotate the project. I already showed you the export rec form and the create PF assemblies. We have our own symbols in here, so you can assign, a symbol for your sheets, different tags that we're using to pull specific information, for conduit bends. And then we have these halftone ideas here. So if I want to halftone the wireway, say I'm running multiple disciplines in a view, I can just, halftone those ideas.
So one of the things that you'll see as he goes through, as he was to throw dimensions on here, a lot of people when they're doing wireway or cable tray right now, they're using ductwork, HVAC duct. The problem is when I go to fabricate, I need to know exactly how many couplings are on here. I need to know which way the cover is going to face in the opening. So you'll see the level of detail that we put in here is because of the needs that fabrication is going to need. So Rick will pull in here. He's going to pull in one a created sheet.
Trying to.
If we can get it to, there we go, pull over. So here's one of the sheets in here. You can see with that the level of detail. This one happens to be on conduit, but you can see up there at the top, he'll put his cursor over it, showing the hypotenuse. So one of the problems we used to, with some of these views, guys would look out in fabrication and say, boy, I just can't tell which way that the optical illusion in this 3D image is that kicking to the left or is it kicking to the right? And so through communicating with them back and forth, we put the triangle that's on there that they were able to see, okay, it opens it up pretty easily. I know exactly which way that pipe is kicking on that, kicking left, the way I'm looking at it, and shows them the kick, the tag on there, showing them what the hypotenuse is and what angle that's at. So anybody that's skilled knows how to bend conduit knows exactly what they're going to need. It gives them all the lengths, tagging it, all in that view.
Okay, and then again, we have these. These are more of your modeling productivity tools. You can pre-assign your own views with their own shortcuts. So if you have a specific 3D view that you want to toggle to all the time, instead of going through your browser here, you can just keyboard shortcut. You have a section box tool, so you can section your 3D view. You can zoom on a selected component. So if I go back to that one there and say zoom, that's because I'm in a sheet. You have rotation tools, so you can rotate X, Y, Z just like in AutoCAD. 3D move is almost like a point snap, so you can add an item by moving it 3D. You have a phase filter. Link DWG, which is kind of a faster way of linking DWGs. We just have our own preferred settings that we've been using, and it kind of does automatic settings instead of having to go through multiple menus. You can add points for point clouds. Connect objects tool, which is taking a group of objects and moving it and snapping it to another group. You have match phases, so if I'm modeling in a phase here and I want to continue modeling in that phase, I would just match the phases. I have a filter switch, which will actually control everything in that view automatically if I want to just get a quick view of everything. Click phase switcher and phase switcher allows you to choose your active phase or layer if you're AutoCAD. So I'll just pick that one. Control-Z. And then we have our point importer exporter. So as you click finish on here, you can pull in a CSV file. So I have like CSV files here. Let's say I wanted to pull in a CSV file for, let's choose this one here. So I can insert points. So I actually recently did this, did a data extraction out of AutoCAD because I had known points in an AutoCAD file. So you may get points from an AutoCAD file that was given to you to start a project. You can actually do a data extraction if you got datums and things like that and load those right in as Revit components, so you're not pulling in AutoCAD backgrounds for your point data. And then you can also create your own points for Trimble using these items here. And then we have different filters. So if you want to hide a discipline or show it again, and then you can hide a specific phase or a specific category. So in a nutshell, that's it.
So I'd like to this time kind of open it up for questions. Anybody have any questions that you have for us on with what we've shown you?
We did have one come in over the type in questions pane, and that was, can you dimension a conduit bend so we can see how easy it is in your system?
Sure. Let me go back to, let's just do the conduit in here, I guess. Let me just put one into this fresh model here real quick. So I'm just going to show you real quick here. So I'm going to lock the view. So now once the view has been locked, which once you've done the view set creator, you will have locked it. And then you'll probably be on a wireframe mode like this. So I use the pick plane. I can assign my side there, and I can pick my item, and I can run through and dimension like that. Again, I can change that if I want to. I can use any 3D face that I want to, but to tag this bend, I would just use this one called tag bend, and obviously I can change the scale of this real quick to be a little better here, but just to give you the general idea there. And then, you know, let's say we want to do this part here. I'm just going to pick this little side there, DI that, and project that dimension that way if I want. Probably not the, let's choose a different side there. So I can choose this one here. That looks better. So that's in a nutshell. That's how you dimension in ISO view.
Did that answer your questions? That question?
Yes, that did answer his question. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Anything else coming through?
Nothing has popped up in the question pane. Guys, if you have any other questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask away, or type away in the question pane. I just had another one pop in here. So is there the ability to auto layout hangers?
On AutoWay, no.
Auto laying out hangers. Oh, so when you run in the conduit, it's just auto putting in the hangers.
Yeah. No, we don't have that at this time.
Are there any plans to possibly develop that in the future, Rick or Aaron?
Sure. You know, we do have some pretty cool trapeze families that are coming out. I can probably load one in for you here real quick. It'll be on the next release, I believe. So let me just find it real quick.
And while you're pulling that one up, Rick, we had another one pop in. Do you have tags for your hangers?
Tags. We have tags. If you want a specific tag, we can develop a specific tag.
I guess I'm understanding what the tags are. You do tag the hangers.
Tags, well, yeah, we would use like a mark number. That's what we typically use.
Is that what they're asking for? I mean,
You would get a unique ID on it.
Yeah, we have a unique ID that's on there, so we know that hanger is hanger 895. So when you're looking at an isometric view or you look in there, I know exactly where that hanger that was fabricated belongs.
Okay, right. And yeah, he clarified a little bit, elevations of top, bottom, etc. Is that kind of along the same lines?
No. We could create a custom tag, no problem. All right, so I'm going to just remove that piece of conduit there. And then I want to kind of show this from a couple angles here, so I'm just setting myself up to showcase this, I guess, the best way I can for a workflow. So if I was to say, and this is our one that's coming out, this is a trapeze setup here. So if I want that trapeze to be a single trapeze, I can. The workflow would be, to set your limitations on that assembly, so you'd stretch out or type in your actual values that you want. And if you want it to be a 2-tier, you can type in a value on the 2-tier as well. So let's say I wanted it to be a multi-tier rack, I can do so, and then I can type in my values to lower that. And then we would set that at its height from the ceiling, and that's going to give me a 10 foot. So I move that up to 10 foot, and then I guess the fastest way to do it without getting too fancy is to just array it, the spacing that I want, a foot, and then I would type in the value. So knowing what my conduit run would be, if I wanted, say 10 of these in there, I would place them, and then if I needed to make an adjustment, I could just grab that as I've done it. I could ungroup that and then just shift the one that I needed to shift, and then I would have them all in place. I mean, I think that's a reasonable workflow. It's not automatic, but it's relatively quick. Any feedback on that?
He did pop another question in here. He asked if if blue bangers are an option for the hangers assembly.
No, but I have a blue banger family that I could do that. You can take that feedback and apply that. And that's really one way to explain this too, is we have numerous types of feedback that could help drive the forward part of this. And as Aaron stated before, we've built this kind of in our own silo, and it's evolving.
But yeah, there's having beam clamps or blue bangers and all that. Absolutely, that's if we don't have them there now.
You can change it from 3/8 to quarter.
Yeah.
You can change your finishes. You can add on end caps if you want to show end caps.
And the reason that's such a big deal, some people would think, well, what do I care about the finish for? Why do I care about that? I need to show it in the model. It does make a difference when you're ordering the material straight from there. When you're asking for gold galvanized, you're asking for zinc, it makes a difference in that bill of material. So for us, it's thinking much further down the line than the guy sitting in the seat putting in a model.
And Aaron and Rick, can you guys talk a little bit about the roadmap for development on the software?
I guess explain that a little bit. What are you referring to on that? Where we're planning on building?
Yeah, just kind of where you're planning on going, some things that you may have in the works that you could tell us a little bit about, or how open you are to interacting with clients as far as getting things developed on that roadmap.
Absolutely. I think that's heavily, that's probably an ASTI conversation to have. But we are absolutely. I mean, the more feedback we get, the beginning of this, and it's changed, quite a bit. But when we started down the path, we focused on building all the families, parts, and pieces that we use as a company very often. I think one of the biggest things that we had to face and look at was getting to a point that we were going standardization of our material. Right? If we tried to go down the path of building every part and piece in the electrical industry out there, which there are companies out there doing that, good luck to them. As fast as you're going to build them, they're going to create them. And we didn't want to be able to build something, the guys in the field order whatever they want, and all of a sudden it's not falling into the specifications that we needed. So when we started building these, we've limited it to the items that we have. Now, as we've worked with clients more and more, we've been creating more and more items for that we may not use. But we are able to, we get feedback from a lot. We're able to engineer parts and pieces specifically that customers are needing and asking for. So that's absolutely in the works. I believe that's ASTI's plan with this. Part of the help in combining the efforts together on this is creating more content families. We obviously do it with the intent, again, for fabrication, to take this to the field and minimize the amount of work that has to happen out there. But as far as what's coming up, Rick was showing you some of the items there.
I was trying to pull up this file here to show this bus duct.
Oh, there's some bus duct stuff coming in. So there's some few families and things that are being added to this as we speak. Cable tray, bus duct, things like that are getting added in.
Okay, excellent. And we did have another question come in. Are all the parts and pieces schedulable?
Well, let's just use this here, you know. If I want to write my own schedule, I would go to just make a schedule real quick. Schedule quantities. Oh, what happened? What did I do?
Okay. Yeah, and also,
It's over there. It's on my third screen, sorry. So I could set up a multi-category schedule. And why is everything going up there? So we have numerous parameters to make any kind of a custom schedule that you want. For now, we'll just say I want the unit of measure and description. We'll not do anything fancy, and then I'm going to use this length parameter here. Oh, I forgot to bring over the description.
right.
So we just use those three parameters there, and then we'll use subcategory, add sorting, subcategory, subcategory does not equal filter. Oh, filter's not in there. Cool. So I'm going to sort it by the unit of measure. Then we'll sort it by description. Say OK. And guess I have all those in there, so I do want subcategory does not equal filter. Subcategory does not equal filter. Okay. And then we'll hide that column, stretch that out. So there's every part and piece itemized, and then we just say don't itemize. And there's everything I just threw in there with that strut.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I believe that did. And there's one more that popped in with regard to the cable tray in the future. Would you build it, or would you build in clearance options to the assemblies? I know that may be a little difficult to answer at this time, but would that be something you would build in as far as clearance options to the assemblies?
So we do have cable tray. Let me show you what I got there. Let me insert load family. Go to cable tray. Let's bring in this B-line aluminum ladder. I have to look on the properties here to see if I still have the clearance zones in here, but I've done it before. Had to put them on their own kind of subcategory within there. I have some older versions that I've done it on. Um, so yeah, you could have the visibility on there, and it would be a checkbox control. That's probably the safest way to do it. So your exported view could have it controlled. We've done it before, where we've had it, translucent. It really doesn't stop the complaints from, the general contractor. They want to see that usually as something they can toggle and shut off in Navisworks. So we can assign it its own, layering system. The other option is what I've considered doing is just building a clearance zone family that you could stretch. It'd be a face-based family that you could just place on the top of your cable tray and then size it out and stretch it out how you want, and then it's its own entity. And that may be the better option for something like that. And then you could use that clearance zone family actually for panel boards or actually anything, and just have it on its own phase, phase clearance zones, and then it wouldn't even, you could just alleviate it from everything you want else otherwise.
Excellent, thank you. And did you create your bill of material from a scope box in a 3D view?
I used the phase, or actually I can do it by phase, but I just did one for whatever's in the project at this point. How we typically do it, if we want to segregate it, we assign it a phase.
Okay, perfect. And would that work over the bins as well?
You get the total length of a run based on the conduit length run. So you would use you can use the multi-category schedule typically, but if you want to sort by phase created, you have to use a conduit fittings schedule, and that's no problem. The only thing that won't show up in a conduit fittings schedule is our flex, because that has to be on pipe flex. That's a system family, but everything else is able to be tracked on a conduit fitting schedule if you like.
Okay, and I think that question would have been more guided towards the cable tray bins regarding clearance.
Oh, I got you. At this time, I just have straight sections. I haven't even made bends, but okay, so you're talking about clearance zones on the bends. So let me see if I can just pull up a real quick example. I don't know if I have that still. I know what he's talking about. There, I actually do have a clearance zone family already. I have a clearance zone family already. How about that? Let me pull this in here real quick. Where'd that? Yeah, that came in here. So it's just a clearance zone family that you could place on there, and then just size it accordingly how you want it. I would probably nest something like this inside of a specific elbow that had to size it would have to size per whatever the elbow is going to be. So if the elbow, dimension has to grow this way, it would have to be built to the family. But for your straight sections, this is the best solution I can think of here.
Okay, thank you, Rick.
You know, and we can build the ladder much like this here. Right now you got a 6-inch width. You can just change that to 18 on the fly, or 6-inch depth. And then the elbows, if we built elbows, they behave just like that.
I still have all that stuff I built for Europe too that behaves that way. Was ATCT.
Any other questions?
I think that looks like it's it on the questions, unless anybody else has anything they want to throw in here right at the end. I'll give it a couple seconds here. Okay. I think we're all good with questions. Rick, Aaron, we really appreciate you all being here and giving us a great demonstration of the tool and answering all the questions that we had today. And to all of our attendees, I just want to say thank you all for taking the time out to join us and take a look. If you have any questions at all, you can reach out directly to Applied Software, and we can forward some information on to you if you need that, or I'll give out my email address, which is ctrotter@asti.com. So feel free to reach out to us with any questions at all, and if no one else has any questions, then I think we'll bring this to a close, and I'll say thank you to everyone again, and hopefully we'll be talking in the future.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.